Hello and welcome to a festive edition of Victoria's spontaneous uploads. Today I want to talk to you all about my top 10. I've narrowed it down from 23 because I think last year's top 23 was a bit much. This year it's going to be top 10 2021 games exclusively, so I'm not talking about all the games that I've played this year. I'm strictly keeping it to 2021 games. So if you got in your time machine and went back to December 2020, these games would not have been available for play or purchase. So let's not waste too much time. I want to give some honourable mentions here to some games that I either didn't finish or finished but felt like they didn't quite cut the mustard. So I've got a few here. We've got Song of Horror, Scarlet Nexus, which is what I'm currently playing, and Returnal. These are all games that I did enjoy, but like I say, I haven't finished all of them, and some of them, even though they were enjoyable, weren't polished. So some honourable mentions there, as well as other games such as Werewolf, The Apocalypse Earthblood, and Hunter's Arena Legends. Funny enough, I actually enjoyed that. With those out of the way, in at number 10, I'm going to talk about Hitman III. I just enjoy murdering people in creative ways. I haven't played all of the 7 Deadly Sin things because that's additional purchases. They weren't free upgrades or free things, but I really did enjoy the base game. Hong Kong, was it Hong Kong or was it Shanghai? I've forgotten where the Chinese level's set. Or is it, no, Xing, oh, I have forgotten the name of the Chinese level, sorry, but that's definitely one of the nicest levels because of all the neon lights and all that. That's really cool. The benefit to having the PS5 version, I was able to upgrade all of the PS4 versions I had of Hitman 1 and 2, so I was able to play those on my PS5 as well, so I went back to the sniper level for Hitman 2, which I wasted a lot of time on. But yeah, number 10, Hitman 3. That was fun, and that actually came with a little passport, so I officially have a license to kill. So be nice to me in the comments. The 9th entry I want to talk about is Observer. Now I know I said these are 2021 releases, I wouldn't be talking about games that were already out. Technically this is a new release. What Bloober have had to do, I don't know if it's a distribution issue, I don't know why they've had to do it, but the original playable version of Observer doesn't exist anymore. The only way you would be able to play Observer on your PlayStation 4 is if you already owned it, or if you went out of your way and purchased the limited run physical copy. There is no other way. There is just no physical way of me playing Observer. I had to buy Observer System Redux, and it is sort of a new version of the game. You know, obviously new graphics, they've tweaked all that, but they've added in some side quests or something from what I understand. So to me, I'm going to class this as a new game, but it's really cool. It's a whole dystopian future sort of thing, which kind of feels more and more like a realistic outcome as the days go by. It's Rutger Hauer, you're playing as Rutger Hauer, which is really cool. You know, rip. What else? The music's, you know, it's really funky. I think the thing that sticks out in my mind the most is one particular side quest whereby you're basically chasing some sort of AI, or you're getting some messages from an AI system, and it's kind of like hacked a house, and it's very strange. I don't really want to go into the details, it's really weird, but basically the AI is horny and it's like tricking blokes into falling in love with it, and oh, it's very strange. But things like that I find very strange, but I also really enjoy the concept of playing through it. But yeah, I don't really want to give too much away. It's a stealthy kind of, it's a first person game, sorry, and there are aspects of stealth. There are some moments where you've got to stay hidden from this guy here. Actually, he's quite freaky, but the overall plot is that you've gone into a apartment complex. You're actually looking for your son, and because you've received some sort of distress signal from him, and there's like an estranged relationship going on there, and the building actually goes into some sort of lockdown because the security systems they have in place now, you know, it's kind of a big brother situation. It just puts the whole building in lockdown because it detects that something iffy's going on, and you're actually a police detective, so luck is on your side. You're able to use your enhancements and your various access to technology and what have you to try and figure out what's going on, as well as doing other little investigations along the way. Yeah, it was really fun. I enjoyed it. I think if you're into that sort of thing, dystopian future, first-person horror, then yeah, this is definitely a game I recommend. Now, in at number 8, some of you may question and query why I've got it so low down my list. I'll go into the details, and that is Tales of Arise. It's not my first Tales game, for I know for a lot of people it is, and the creators of the game have been very open about how they've made it a more accessible game. In other words, they have made it easier, and I don't mean that in a insulting way, but I played this on hard and I still found it smooth sailing compared to other Tales games I've tried to play on hard. Overall, it is amazing. Its design, its art design and execution is chef's kiss. Some of the like settings are just outstanding. I did the whole panning around, kind of taking it all in, and the graphic fidelity goes hand in hand with that. The music's also really good. I liked the music, the fight music, and well, everything. The strangely enough, and I might get a bit of stick for this, the weakest point for me of this game was the story. I did not find the story all that interesting, to be honest. I didn't find it relatable, and I do think other Tales games have had better stories. But that aside, the rest of the game was like a 9 to 10 out of 10 for me. But you know, compared to other games I've played throughout the year, other games have come out on top, which I'm going to get to in due course. But yeah, Tales of Arise is still a great game. It's still a great JRPG. Definitely a JRPG I would recommend to people who've never played one before, because the battle system, it's the same as what I've come to expect from Tales, but they've definitely made it far more digestible. So I still recommend it. But yeah, that's my number 8 pick. My number 7 pick is a game that I'm sure you're probably already anticipating me to talk about. There are some games, if you follow me on social media like Twitter, I have gushed about online, and one of those games is House of Ashes, the 3rd instalment of the Dark Pictures Anthology. I did an unboxing for it earlier on in the year, and why did I love it? Trouble is, I don't dislike the other two at all. I liked Man of Medan and I liked Little Hope. I liked the completely different themes that those games explored. But this kind of cranked it up to 11. I think the feedback survey that Bandai Namco did for Little Hope last year, I would not be surprised if some of the things that I said were echoed by other people. You know, they asked questions like, did you like the fixed camera angles? Would you prefer over the shoulder? Do you like having lots of things to interact with, or would you prefer this? Do you prefer story over interactivity? And all that kind of stuff. So they did make some changes for this. I digress. What did I actually like about this game? I love the plot. I really don't want to spoil it. If I were to say which movies that inspiration was drawn from, I think that might inadvertently spoil some of the plot twists, but let it be said that the inspirations came out of left field. I kind of didn't think, oh wow, I see where they're going with this, and it wasn't until the point of no return where it's like, okay, I know what's happening now. The graphic fidelity, I played this on a PlayStation 5, as you can see, so I can't compare to a PlayStation 4, but I don't recall there being many graphical issues. I think there was a couple of instances where in the finale, your remaining characters, whoever those may be, will be fighting some other characters, and the enemy characters will actually vary depending on a decision you made at the very start of the game. That's all I'm going to say. But the weirdest thing was, I'd be fighting this enemy character, and then after a certain animation it would flip to the other character who by rights shouldn't have been there. So that was the only graphic mishap I experienced. The rest was pretty smooth sailing. The design, the trouble is I'm not too big on deserts, deserty areas and things like that, but once you get deeper and deeper to the underground sections and the plot develops and we see some slightly different environments, I was getting a bit more and more excited about that. But yeah, I think there's not much more else I can say about House of Ashes, so there we go. So entry number 6 is a game that I no longer have, so let's just pretend that the game is here. And the game I'm talking about is Root Film. So it's a visual novel, and again, very plot driven, so I don't want to give too much away. And it's only really been in the recent couple of years that I've started playing visual novels and getting more and more interested in them. Some make the decision to go completely text-based, with making a decision here and there after maybe several hours of dialogue. That's not what this is. Root Film is a far more interactive experience. There is dialogue, and there's still good chunks of dialogue, but you as the player get to choose locations, try and figure out this mystery that's happening. You get to try and figure out who it is you need to talk to, what information you need to get out of them before you can move on to the next portion of the game. And the story itself's really cool. I didn't think it was I was quite shocked by how it panned out, and I don't really want to say much more than that. And the graphical style and execution, again, I really liked it. There are some visual novels that go above and beyond and they are just so crisp, but because they put so much effort into the style and the design, the rest falls flat. There's not a lot else going on. But with this game, they chose a really cool design, lots of bright colours, and made sure that it had enough meat and potatoes to actually keep you fulfilled as a player. So again, I don't really want to go too much into the plot line, but the basis of it is you are a filmmaker and you get given a project. So we're trying to revive a project that got cancelled a decade ago. Would you be interested in it? And you are tasked with going location scouting, trying to figure out from some of the people why the project was cancelled to begin with, and it kind of ensues from there. So yeah, Root Film, a game I recommend. Right, my 5th pick. I think some people might be surprised I've got it in at number 5. I have my reasons for not putting it in any higher than that. And that's because of reflection and hindsight. This is a game that I played earlier in the year and I've had a chance to think about it. Now, that is Resident Evil 8. So I played it for about a week, maybe a week and a half solid. I played it on normal difficulty, hard difficulty, and then I unlocked the Village of Shadows difficulty and I played it on that too. I enjoyed it. It was a challenge to a degree. I think some of the mistakes of Resident Evil 5 have transcended into this game. It's definitely more of an action game than a horror game. Some people may disagree. I definitely didn't feel quite as on edge with this game as I did with 7. But I still enjoyed it. And like I say, I played it for like a week and a half solid, like no breaks. I didn't get bored. At no point did I find myself just holding the controller in my hand, staring at the screen thinking, oh, I don't actually want to play. I played it till I couldn't play it anymore. But it did get to a point where, you know, I had the infinite grenade launcher. There wasn't a lot of challenge. The only time I felt a lot of challenge was when you've got to go to the Wolf's Den. I'm going to call it the Wolf's Den, but it's not. That area on Village of Shadows difficulty was a little bit annoying, even with a full arsenal of weapons and all the gold in the world, because, you know, I went and bought all the stuff. It was still a bit of a pain in the ass area. But other than that, I think the plot, I would love to see the conclusion of the trilogy. They've kind of said it's going to be a trilogy, I'm fairly certain. So Resident Evil 9, I am looking forward to that. I would love to see how the story goes forward. But yeah, so it's not a bad game, but I just don't think it was the greatest Resident Evil of all time, but that's just my opinion. It still holds up at number 5. Camera died. How rude. So, as I was saying, in at number 4 is another horror game, and clearly it's a horror game that I enjoyed just a pinch more than Resident Evil 8 upon reflection, and that is Tormented Souls. You may have heard of this if you're part of the horror community. I'm not too sure how widely available it is. I just think it might be the physical release for PlayStation 4 and Xbox One that's been delayed. I could be wrong, I'm not sure. Please correct me if that's the case. But anyway, to summarise, Tormented Souls is about this lassie here. I think her name's Caroline. I could be wrong, or Karen. I don't know. It begins with a cuss sound, I'm sure of it. And she gets a mysterious letter at the very start of the game, to which she then retraces back to the sender's address, which is this spooky ass hospital stroke mansion up on the cliffside somewhere in Canada. And this definitely takes from horror inspirations or survival horror inspirations such as Resident Evil, Silent Hill. It really does harken back to that era of gaming. It's got fixed camera angles, puzzles, a limited inventory space, though I didn't have any trouble with inventory whatsoever. In terms of the scare factor, yeah, there were a couple of times where I was a bit, oh my god, I thought I was going to die, or I was panicking because I thought maybe I was going to run into a no point of a return sort of thing. I just really enjoyed the more traditional style of horror game, if that's really what you can call it. Yeah, and the music was really good. I love the music for this game. I really wish that there was some sort of CD that I could have purchased for it, or vinyl. Apparently that's a thing now. Yeah, and what else? The voice actress, I loved the voice actress in this game. Tormented Souls, I don't want to really go too deep into the detail because I just kind of want people to try it out for themselves. But it is, yeah, like I say, my favourite horror game of the year. In at number 3, alright, we're getting into the bronze, silver, gold category now. So number 3 is, and this, I do stand by that this is a new game, Nier Replicant. So some of you are going to argue that's not a new game, it's just a remaster, stroke remake of an old game. I would argue that this is a version of Nier that up until now was not possible for me to play. Well, I wasn't going to go through the hassle of buying a Japanese PS3, that's for sure. I don't really know what to say about Nier Replicant that probably hasn't already been said by other reviewers or other outlets or whatever, other than it was just so nice and nostalgic. It reminded me of quirky games that used to come out like in the early 2010s that had next to no hype or not a lot of publicity, but would just come out of left field and create its own cult following, and that's what Nier's done. Well, Nier Automata kind of helped accelerate that, but for me that's the original Nier, that's what it did. I love the music in this game. I think the music's definitely, it's still in my head now. It's been in my head all year long. And I just like it's very basic gameplay. It's nothing too complicated. It's not asking too much of the player. It's just an endurance thing, really, if you've played it on hard, medium, or whatever. And of course the plot is so unique in terms of how the plot is told. You get like one version of the story, you go through your second playthrough, and then you're seeing the same story through someone else's perspective or with added perspectives. I'm still yet to complete it on ending D and ending E. That's just something I'm building myself up to, and I will do it eventually. But yeah, again, this is another JRPG-esque game that I can't help but recommend to anyone who's into the genre if you haven't played it already. Right, so number 2 slot. What's come out that Victoria hasn't already spoken about? What could she have possibly played this year that would get in at number 2? Well, I'll answer that question, folks. It is Final Fantasy VII Intermission. I class as a game of its own. Yes, you have to play Final Fantasy VII to understand what's happening. Yes, you can only play this with Final Fantasy VII. However, this was a 15-hour experience, maybe a bit longer for me, that I had a great time with. The added boss fights for Final Fantasy VII, so the Vice fight, it was stressful but fun once I figured out what it was I had to do. But I loved the fight. The combat mechanic was hadn't really been altered from the base game, but this time you were down to 2 characters rather than 3, and you could only really directly command Yuffie. Sonon, you had to do like separate directives too, or combo attacks, that sort of thing. But it worked. It really worked so well, and I just want more of it. This is kind of like the appetizer to part 2, and it hasn't satisfied my hunger, shall we say. I would play it again if I could. I just don't see the point in me playing it again when I've got all these other games just sat here in front of me waiting to be played. But for anyone, unfortunately, for anyone who doesn't have a PlayStation 5, this is inaccessible, and that does suck. But I really do urge people to play this when the opportunity arises, because it was just so much fun. I loved it. Yeah. So Final Fantasy Intermission. Now, number 1 spot, I think if you follow me online, you've seen me gush about this game, and truthfully, it's kind of slipped into number 1 because it is one of the most recent games I've played, and it's quite hard to cast your mind back all year long and think, well, how did that game make me feel? How am I still thinking about that game, months and weeks on? And in this case, yes, I am, and that is Kana, Bridge of Spirits. So there you go. This is technically my game of the year, and lo and behold, it's actually made by an indie studio, Ember Labs. This isn't even a AAA game, though it looks it, quite frankly. I don't really know what to say about this game other than, it looks amazing. The music, oh my god, the music's so good. The music is it goes hand in hand with the visual storytelling. And it's quite a simple story as well. Usually I like intricate, complicated stories, or at least stories that have a bit more twists and turns, something to keep your attention. This, on the other hand, has a very straightforward story. Kana is a spirit guide, and she's gone to this village. She's actually trying to get to the mountain shrine, which sits behind the village, but she's gone to the village to try and ask for help so that she can make her journey to the mountain shrine, that's the word. But she encounters other spirits along the way, and she helps them because that's what she does. And like I say, the music's great, it visually looks great, the combat's actually quite well thought out. I don't think it's too complicated. The only thing that I didn't like is it does have the adaptive triggers on the PlayStation 5, and that was so annoying. Like, you really have to press down on those triggers, and I was getting like finger and knuckle cramps just doing that. But other than that, I don't have any complaints of this game. I spent a lot more time on it than I thought I would. You've got all your typical platformer tropes. You've got areas to explore, chests to open, collectibles to find, all that good stuff. Little areas and nooks that you've got to try and find yourself by traversing and just using your imagination a little bit. So yeah, I really don't know what else I can say about Kana, Bridge of Spirits, without completely ruining or taking away from anyone who wants to just dive in and try it for themselves and formulate their own opinion. But it is certainly a game that I hope to see more of, a franchise that I hope to see more of, and hopefully we will see more of Kana in future games. Yeah, but that wraps up my 2021 top 10 games thing. So do you agree or disagree with any of the games I talked about? I would like to hear from you guys what some of your favourite standout games from this year were. And with that, I think I will bid you a Merry Christmas, or whichever festive ceremony you partake in. And hopefully I'll see you all again very soon. If not, it'll be next year. Bye!